Hi, Iris. This is Michael, and you are my TOEFL bootcamp student. And I'm looking at your essay right now. So I just finished reading what you wrote about 3 minutes ago. And you have very, very good writing here. So I gave you 4.5 out of 5 or 28 points out of 30 on this particular writing practice test. All right, so if we go over to the rubrics, I think I didn't give you a perfect score, but I gave you a very high score, as you can see. So I think you have exactly answered the question. You have a good, strong organization and development with sufficient details and examples. You have a strong connection. You do not go off topic. And you actually have pretty good control of your language use. There's a few minor errors in there, and that's probably why you want to watch the video, right? So I'm going to offer some corrections of what you wrote. But in terms of your structure, your thesis, your topic sentences, and your examples, I think it's pretty good the way you wrote it. So let's take a look at the first paragraph and see what changes you can make here. So probably my first change, instead of all of that, you can probably just do this. Culturally, people think of serious literature. Find artwork. Artwork or work is an uncount noun, so I wouldn't put S on that. You have different, and I'm going to change this to different music genres and get rid of the prepositional phrase there. So what am I doing? I'm helping you kind of tighten up your sentences a little bit without using any wordy expressions. Say, it seems that dance always comes sort of at the bottom of the list. I'm going to put last. Is dance really not as important as other forms of culture? Do people simply name them in order of familiarity since they take more literacy classes? And how about literacy? Instead of repeating the word classes twice, you say more literacy and painting classes and dance courses at school. And probably, I believe, you don't even need that. And just start off with dancing works as a crucial component in a nation's culture because it is an ideal symbol of culture and also because it inspires people just as other forms of culture do. So that's good. So we have your thesis. And I think because you're connecting the two dependent clauses together, I don't think that you need the comma before and. Now, if you're using and to join separate sentences, I would say yes, but you're not. And also because it inspires people just as other forms of culture do. So I think you have a pretty good introduction there. I don't see any major problems there. How many words are we talking about here? You're a little bit short. I recommend closer to 100 on this, but I did get rid of some words in there. It would have been longer, closer to 100 had I not done that. But again, be careful of not using any unnecessary words. In the next paragraph, we have what must be prioritized is that dancing is a significant ingredient of culture because it perfectly stands for culture. Yeah, you got a lot of unnecessary words in there. But it does go back. You have, it's an ideal symbol of culture. But really, if I said this, dancing I mean, I could get rid of all that and say this, dancing perfectly stands for culture, and I'm still saying the same thing. First of all, so what I'm saying is use the words that you're using here, use them in the details and things, but don't use too many unnecessary words in here. But definitely your topic sentence connects back to what you said in the introduction. You have, first of all, dancing is the mirror. How about this? Dancing, instead of using that, mirrors cultural changes. So dancing mirrors cultural changes and mixes with cultures from other nations. From the Han Dynasty, when artists created their genre of dancing to entertain aristocrats through, I'm going to probably put the article right in front of that word, and then also here, through the Tang Dynasty, when native dancing absorbed a wealth of elements of foreign dancing which came along with foreign merchants to the current society when people can just download a video of dancing and teach themselves at home, the purpose, the form, and the popularity of dancing have changed. Wow, that was a great sentence. My goodness. You see what you just wrote here? Yeah, that, and it's actually pretty correct there. So, wow, that's one of the reasons you're scoring high. That's an excellent constructed sentence there. Okay, let's go back. In a breathtaking approach, you can probably just say breathtakingly, or you could say dramatically. So you have the purpose, the form, the popularity of dancing have changed dramatically. It is the change in dancing that faithfully and loyally demonstrates the change in our culture. How about cultural change? That way you don't have to use that preposition. So the general principle is, if possible, try to reduce some of your prepositional phrases to single words if you can. Additionally, compared with literature and painting, dancing always is displayed. How about this? In a dynamic way. Let's just get rid of all of that and say dynamically, which makes it, I'm going to put makes it not and, but a, because the first sound of unique is a consonant. It's a Y, not a vowel. So which makes it a unique and important part of our culture. How about cultural? And let's get rid of important, because that's kind of a vague word. How about a unique and integral cultural part? I'm using integral to take the place of importance. Specifically, books and paintings cannot move. Dancing, however, is always displayed. So this, you want to be careful here, because books and paintings cannot move, and then you have another subject and another verb. So here, let's put in that semicolon. Dancing, however, is always displayed dynamically. And then we can get rid of the dynamic way. Dancers need to flip, jump, and run on the stage when they're expressing the deep meaning behind the show without dancing being a significant. How about a significant? How about here, a cultural norm? give you a little bit better vocabulary there. Without dancing being a significant cultural norm, the culture will be demonstrated in a silent and frozen way forever. Okay, so I think the only thing that you could do here, if you wanted to improve a little bit more with this paragraph, is to give a specific type of dance. For example, the salsa, or the merengue, or the what's called square dancing in American culture with country music or something. You know, give the name of a specific dance and show how this dance is important to the culture. That gives you a little bit more what I call depth to the ideas, but still you have a good paragraph. Okay, in this next paragraph, so you're developing the second point you mentioned in the thesis. So what is equally worthwhile to be discussed is that dancing functions. This is not really, it doesn't do anything here. What is equally worthwhile to be discussed, that's a very awkward, very cumbersome part of the sentence there. Just say something like, furthermore, dancing functions so dancing inspires people just like other forms of culture do, which makes it an indispensable part of culture. Dance makes people find out who they are, just as literature enlightens people to realize their personalities. And this is what makes this paragraph, I think, a little bit better than the one before. It's this. This really, really is effective. This specific example, it helps to illustrate the point you're trying to make. So you have, take myself, for example. And I wouldn't even say that. Just say, for example. When I was at college, my roommate was the leader. I would say was the lead dancer, use it as an adjective. Then dancers announcer was a lead dancer in the school's street dancing club. At the time, I knew nothing about street dancing. And then maybe use some kind of connector word here to help show the difference here. However, after watching her, I'll say watching her practice, not practicing. So some minor problems with, I think after watching her, you're kind of using, you watched her practice, or after watching, using practice kind of as an infinitive, but you want to use the base form after watching. After watching her practice for a couple of times, I decided to join her, and this decision totally changed my character and values. I would use character singular. I used to be labeled as a book nerd, and so did I think of myself. Yeah, this is a little bit awkward here. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this. You might say, so I began to accept this label as my, how about true identity? That might work a little bit better. That's kind of what you said here. If we go back to what we're looking at here, it says the use of unnatural sounding expressions that do not interfere with meaning. So how you wrote that was a little bit unnatural. Let's look at it one more time here. Okay, let's keep going here. So you say, I used to be labeled as a book nerd, so I began to accept this label as my true identity. Nevertheless, I found that I was more than that. Dancing made me realize that I could be confident and outgoing, that I was supposed to stop defining myself. So you have that, and that. So we got to get your parallel structure figured out here, that I was supposed to stop defining myself, that I could believe. I would just, maybe that's too many that's. How about this? How about say that? So that I was supposed to stop defining myself, that I was capable of everything, and that I could embrace the adult world. How about optimistically? How about that? Okay, so I think I got it. So let's look at that paragraph again. This was, you had some problems with parallelism, right? That was what I was trying to straighten out here. Okay, so what I did is I saw you using that, which is a noun clause. So noun clause, noun clause, noun clause, and noun clause again. So we made everything parallel. Dancing made me realize that I could be confident and outgoing, that I was supposed to stop defining myself, that I was capable of everything, and that I could embrace the adult world optimistically. I could never think about any book or any, you want to say here, painting, or any piece of music that had, I'm going to change this to such a thorough influence on me, but dance affected me I'm going to just say impressively and get rid of all that other stuff. Just use an adverb to take the place of all those other words. So how maybe use a cause effect here. How about hence how can I deny that dancing is an essential part of the culture? Okay, I think we have it. Okay, let's look at your last paragraph. Not only is dancing an ideal symbol of the culture, but also I'm going to put the also here. Your parallel structure is actually pretty good, but it also inspires people, which is a natural function of the culture, because you're kind of you're making this assertion here for the first time. I'm going to use a, so which is a natural function of the culture. On the basis of these, what? How about reasons? I can confidently contend that dance plays an essential role in, I'm going to put a culture. Okay, so I made some corrections in there. There's some things that you can improve with maybe parallelism. You have some minor problems with your use of articles and the. You have a few minor issues with what's called count or uncount nouns, for example, that artwork as opposed to artworks. And maybe your biggest issue is you can probably be a little bit more concise in the writing. Okay, so now the question is, maybe we can take a look at your essay one more time, and then okay, let's take a look. I want to see how many words we have here. And as long as you're over 350, especially because you have two paragraphs here, I would say 350 to even almost 500 is probably pretty good. But let's take a look at the word count here, see what we're dealing with here. So we're fine. You got almost 500 here. So you're at 487 words. So, and that's in just 2 body paragraphs. So you did take time to develop those paragraphs. So let's look at it one more time. Culturally, people think of serious literature, fine artwork, and different music genres. Or how about this? When people think of serious literature, fine artwork, and different music genres, we want to combine these two. Dance always comes last. Is dance really not as important as other forms of culture? Or do people simply name them in order of familiarity since they take more literacy and painting classes than dance courses at school? Dancing works as a crucial component in a nation's culture because it is an ideal symbol of culture and also because it inspires people just as other forms of culture do. Right? So that's the actual introduction. So here's the next paragraph. Dancing perfectly stands for culture. How about and this kind of, I'm restating a little bit of the writing prompt here. So is dancing an important part of culture? Why or why not, right? First of all, dancing mirrors cultural changes and mixes with cultures from other nations. From the Han Dynasty, when artists created their genre of dancing to entertain aristocrats, through the Tang Dynasty, when native dancing absorbed a wealth of elements of foreign dancing which came along with foreign merchants, to the current society, when people can just download a video of dancing and teach themselves at home, the purpose, the form, and the popularity of dancing have changed dramatically. This sentence, it blows my mind. I'm telling you, it's incredible how you wrote that. That, I give you very big points for that sentence. It is the change in dancing that faithfully and loyally demonstrates cultural change. We already said the word change, right? How about cultural shifts or shift? I'm going to say cultural shifts to substitute for change, which means changes. I'm using shift so we don't repeat this word twice. Additionally, compared with literature and painting, dancing always is displayed dynamically. Yeah, I think you have a little bit of trouble with your word order with adverbs. In this case, I'm going to put the adverb in between the auxiliary and the main verb. That's a more common word order for that. Now, I know adverbs go in many parts of the sentence, but in this case, it's more natural to put it in between the auxiliary and the main verb. So dancing is always displayed dynamically, which makes it a unique and integral cultural part. Specifically, books and paintings cannot move. Dancing, however, is always displayed dynamically. So I changed that to a semicolon to avoid what's called a comma splice. If you want to learn more about that, go to Google. What is a comma splice? Dancers need to flip, jump, and run on the stage when they're expressing the deep meaning behind the show. Without dancing being a significant cultural norm, the culture would be demonstrated in a silent and frozen way forever. Maybe here, you might talk about any I'm going to maybe just say a culture. Furthermore, dancing inspires people just as other forms of culture do, which makes it an indispensable part of culture. Dance makes people find out whom they are, just as literature enlightens people to realize their personalities. For example, when I was at college, my roommate was the lead dancer in the school's street dancing club. At the time, I knew nothing about street dancing. However, after watching her practice for a couple times, I decided to join her, and this decision totally changed my character and values. I used to be labeled as a book nerd, so I began to accept this label as my true identity. Nevertheless, I found that I was more than that. Dancing made me realize that I could be confident and outgoing, that I was supposed to stop defining myself, that I was capable of everything, and that I could embrace the adult world optimistically. I could never think about my book or any painting or any piece. Let's get rid of or here. I could not think about any book, any painting, and then here, comma, or any piece of music that had such a thorough influence on me, but dance affected me impressively. Hence, how can I deny that dancing is an essential part of the culture? Have you already talked about culture in this paragraph? Let me see. Yeah, indispensable part of culture. Good, so that's okay. So let's keep going. The last paragraph. Not only is dancing an ideal symbol of the culture, but it also inspires people, which is a natural function of the culture. On the basis of these reasons, I can confidently contend that dance plays an essential role in a culture. The question is now, based on your score, what can you do specifically in my website at stealth.michaelbuckoff.com? What can you do specifically to improve your writing proficiency? All right, let's start with vocabulary. So probably your vocabulary is pretty good. You could probably still make some improvements there if you want to. I think your basic vocabulary is pretty good, so don't worry about lesson 3, but maybe vocabulary lesson 4, 5, 6, those 3 lessons might be helpful, so you can be a little more specific sometimes in the words that you're using. Let's go to the grammar part of my course. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, you had some minor problems with parallel structure. Lesson number 14, so you can take a look at that. Maybe word order. You remember word order with adverbs? You can probably take a look at lesson number 15, lesson 16, count and non-count nouns. You can take a look at that one. You remember the word artwork versus artworks. What else here? Let me keep going here. I think articles, lesson 20, a, and the, you had some minor issues with that. I think lesson number 25, comma splices, is also something you can work on with your grammar to improve it. Probably the biggest one, the most changes I made really was in grammar lesson 27, being more concise. So you can probably be a little bit more concise and tighten up your sentences a little bit more without using so many unnecessary words there. Let me keep going. Maybe lesson 29, if you want to look at the use of the semicolon. Make sure you have a pretty good understanding of how the semicolon works in academic writing. You take a look at that. And I think that's it for the grammar part of my course. Let me take a look at the writing area. I don't think there's a lot there. I think you're actually in pretty good shape. You had a good thesis statement. You had your topic sentences in there. So I didn't notice any major issues there. Okay, those are my recommendations so far. Now let me go over to one other website. I'm going to look at a particular lesson that might be useful. Let me go to Independent Writing Strategies. I wrote this article at Better TOEFL Scores a few weeks ago. Independent Writing Strategies. Let me take a look if there's anything in here that might be good for you to look at. Okay, I'm looking here. Yeah, you can, I mean, your word order is incredible. I mean, your sentence style is pretty good, but you still have quite a few shorter sentences in there. So if you study this particular lesson, I want you to go to heading number 7 where it says Syntactic Variety, and take a look at 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. You see where I went here? So that would probably help a little bit. And maybe you could do a little bit better with use cohesive techniques to create paragraph and essay unity. So look at the different tips, 8.2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 about cohesion, right? I think so. Looking in this lesson, particularly with syntactic variety and also with cohesion, I think that'll also strengthen your writing right now. And where did I go again? You see where I went? I went to bettertoeflscores.com and I clicked where it says TOEFL independent writing strategies, and you can probably take a look at some of those lessons too.